Hey YouTube, figured I would do a review following the amount of viewers I got on my last video on this 2013 GSXR 750. Sorry, I'm putting my gear on. I wanted to do a full review. I went online and kind of followed up to see what was out there by now, and I was pretty disappointed with the videos out, so I figured I'd come out and make a quick video on this bike and just give you guys a quick full review. It won't take really long. So first made the video. Initially the bike was brand new and didn't still going through the break-in period, and I was really learning the bike then, and now a few things are done. So let me just go over basically the basics on this bike. Again, 2013 Suzuki GSXR 750. This is the black bike. Basically, has the adjustable Showa suspension, 6-speed. I think a little over 140 horsepower, something like that. Right out of the bat, and I should mention this is my best friend's bike, not mine. He's just letting me ride it a little bit for him and kind of give a little review here. But biggest problem with this bike off the bat was that it engine felt great. The bike is solid, it's well built, it feels good, and my main bike, mind you, I guess what I'm comparing it to is I come off a BMW S1000RR, and in comparison I find this bike to be very well built, in a lot of ways better, I think. Extremely reliable engine, runs great, a lot of power, but the changes that were made, first of all, suspension. This bike, it doesn't come from factory set up for everybody, and I think that that's something that I definitely figured out along with my buddy, after riding the bike for a while, really trying to find out how come we're not getting that feel that we're trying to, why the way it should feel, the way we imagine it to feel. We're just not getting that. And finally had a guy, his name's John, down here in San Diego. All he does is suspension tuning. Took a look at the bike and basically realized the whole bike was set 100% wrong. It was, and no bike comes from the factory dialed in. It's a matter of a bike like this that is designed for sport biking, track riding. You need to customize it for yourself. There's no bike you're going to get off the showroom floor that's going to be dialed in for each person perfectly. And it's such a simple thing to do, but it makes such a unbelievable difference when it comes down to riding. Whether you're commuting, whether you're riding on the track, canyon runs, weekend warrior, whatever you are, the first thing I would do on any of these bikes is suspension tuning. Dial it in for yourself. Get yourself comfortable on your bike. I don't know how anybody goes out riding these bikes and putting thousands of miles on them on factory tuned suspension. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable, actually. I mean, if you have this bike and you've ridden it and you've never touched the suspension, you think it's good. Let me tell you, you have not the first clue what this bike is capable of. I obviously, like I mentioned earlier, come off a leader bike. A lot more flywheel rotational mass. The bike just feels like a heavy brick in comparison. This bike, I mean, it's just so tossable. I feel like I'm riding a bicycle, honestly. It's so smooth. I mean, everything about it is just, it's fun. It is a really, really fun bike. You feel like you're on a 250 in some regards. It just, you have no pressure, it's so easy. I don't know how else to put it other than it's easy, it feels light. And the person whose bike this belongs to, this was actually his first bike. I mean, he got on this, a bike that I didn't honestly recommend, didn't think it was the right bike to start off with. Just too much power, just too much of everything off the bat.
And you know, he's been able to manage riding it, and he's really built up. Now, given maybe he could have built up faster on a slower bike, and I'm not advocating that this is a great first bike for anybody, but you know, it just proves that, you know, with the bike set up right, when you get a good feel for something, you know, you might be able to come out, take your time and figure it out. And I think he was able to on this bike. But let me refocus a little bit and talk about what the negatives of this bike are off the showroom floor. The first negative is the bike comes with terrible tires. It comes with poor suspension, as I was talking about. It has a very weird setup for the rear sets. They're set in a very unusual spot, kind of a spot that I would say it would be more apt for cruising. I don't know if the demographic of this bike just suits where it sets from the factory, but it's just, yeah, it was wrong. The other thing is, when we did the 600-mile service on this bike, you know, something to note for, we took it to a local dealer here, and I'm not going to mention any names, but all I can tell you is when you get your bike serviced, try to take some care as to what kind of lubricants they're using, you know, what kind of oils, you know, what kind of filters and stuff like that. I mean, when we got this bike back from service, it looked like it had water for oil in it, and the bike was rough, and it just, you know, it just really was, it felt like I was, you know, breaking the cylinder as I was you know, revving it up. It was pretty bad. So just something to note when you get these things serviced. You know, the dealers for these Jap bikes are pretty terrible. I have yet to find a dealer that, you know, has a tech who actually gives a rat's ass about this thing when it's in service, which is one of the reasons why I have a BMW, is I just have a much better relationship with the tech, and I find they just care a lot more. And this is obviously a dealer's, not third parties. And as you can see right now, I'm just cruising around here in La Jolla. You know, all limited roads, you know, no real hard twisties or anything around here, unfortunately. Just showcasing what the bike can do. Now, I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but the bike's incredibly smooth. I'm going over some terrible roads, huge potholes, you know, huge bumps, and you know, the bike just, the suspension, it has just so much potential. That's one of the things that I keep talking about on this bike: suspension, suspension, suspension. It's got incredible suspension feel. I mean, once it's dialed in and once you're able to really get full use out of it, it really feels just as good as my BMW. And in fact, it feels as good and as responsive as the Ducati Panigale R, which I just got off riding about a week ago. And I'm having, honestly, just as much fun. I mean, for a guy really looking at this bike kind of in between, you know, maybe a BMW, maybe some sort of a Ducati, even though they're all far higher in the price point, or maybe going to you know, another Jap bike. I can not say enough good things about this bike, but sorry, it's my first vlog, so I might be getting a little distracted on going from one end to another. But let me try to focus a little bit. So let me talk about the engine. If you can't already hear it, the bike has an extremely loud intake howl. Some may love it, some may hate it. Really, personal preference. I like it. I like to hear the engine. It's got good feel. Yeah, bike's got some power to it, that's for sure. That's the other thing I noticed. It's got a very short throw gearbox. Oh, here we go, I get distracted again. So I was talking about the engine, and honestly, as I mentioned, smooth as most are. But one of the things I like about this engine, given that we have changed to up one tooth on the sprocket on this bike, on the forward sprocket, one thing I'll say is right off the bat is that the engine, unlike a 600, it does give you the bottom end. It does give you the response. I mean, I can be anywhere in town in second, maybe even third gear, and the bike's gonna go around him. It's not gonna lug you out. It's not gonna struggle. It's not gonna feel like it's gonna stall. It very much resembles a larger bike in that regard. Other than that, being that the engine's completely stock, all I can say is that it's got a ton of power, and it's one of the few bikes that I honestly get on the road and feel like I could use all or most the power on the bike on canyon runs. You know, one of the problems with going to these leader bikes and very large CC bikes is the problem that you can never ride and get a grip of throttle on canyon runs. You're very, you gotta feather your throttle. You got to be very gentle. You got to be very aware of your throttle position, and muscle memory is critical. And at least to be quick on a canyon run for a leader bike, it's hard work. And on a bike like this, yeah, okay, if you're into street racing and who's the fastest guy on the highway, well, this is not the bike for you. However, if you're into learning and going to the track and having a bike for canyon runs and maybe a lot of commuting, and I'll hit on how comfortable this bike is for that as well, this is absolutely the right bike. I mean, this bike, as I mentioned, you could easily commute on this bike day to day. It does not have an aggressive rake, anything like a Yamaha R6 or R1. It doesn't have a rake anywhere near a Ducati, whether it's a Panigale, a Street Fighter. Quite frankly, it's got the similar rake to a Monster, I want to say, maybe a tad more, if that. But this bike's extremely comfortable. I'm 185 pounds, so I guess for a motorcycle rider, that's might be on the higher end. And this bike is extremely comfortable. I find myself comfortable in the saddle on this bike for extended periods of time, and never finding any issues with trying to stretch my back out or anything, which I find on my own bike and on other bikes I've been on. I've hit on the suspension, and I just hit a huge bump, and again, I just want to tell everybody, if you buy this bike, please get the suspension adjusted and tuned for yourself. That's the benefit of having and buying a bike with full rebound compression adjustments, and taking advantage of them. They're there for a reason. They're there to make you into a faster rider. And since on a motorcycle it's so based on the rider and not so much the bike, it's even more critical to be able to work with your motorcycle and be able to get that comfort. I know just riding this bike around, it has become just so effortless. It used to buck from the factory. You'd go over a bump and without question the rear wheel would hit a bump, and I'm gonna go over a little bumpy road right now. There you go. Just smacks down. Very smooth landing though. Before, I would have damn near come off the bike right there. I mean, it's just unbelievable how the suspension soaks up. Yet it's not soft. It's not gonna bottom out, and you're not gonna hit a bump and just launch on it. It's just perfect. It's awesome. And the weight of this bike in combination with it, it's just such a happy medium, which I guess is the whole idea of a 750. But it really is very impressive as to what it can do. Unfortunately, this Mustang was here. I was gonna drop it into a lean a little bit and kind of give you an idea how it turns, but just the way it dives, it's really a bicycle. It's incredible. I haven't gotten a bike that feels this light with this kind of power and response, shy of 600 and a light 600 at that. I've ridden a previous model Triumph Street Triple, and I would say that this is the fared sport bike version in a 4-cylinder that would react in a similar way. That's, if that means anything to you. God, this bike just so easy to ride, and just dives right into everything. I mean, it's so easy to just follow a line, come to an apex, and just stick to it. Oh yeah. Wow. Some of the side things to know, you know, gauge cluster is very easy to read, gear indicator is very easy to see. You got digital speed, analog, RPM, which is, I think, the preferred way. You know, as far as some of the things we've done to this bike, I might add, is we're now swapped using Motul 300V oil, factory weight, ester core. It's their newer oil, it just came out. And you know, sport bikes generally run hot, especially in the city when you're running them. You know, if you you know, you're stuck in traffic or something, I'm sure, as you guys know, you know, bikes get really hot. And I can easily say that just going to that oil shaved a solid 10 degrees off the engine temperature. I used to hear the fans come on the radiators on this bike, you know, it just pretty much all the time. I mean, it's like anytime I got to a stop or sat in traffic, boom, there are the fans. You know the bike's hot, and you feel the heat just, you know, especially with the fans on, you know, the heat's just radiating just like crazy, and it's just like, it's just dreadful. It's that's when the bike just is like, ugh, this is not a good bike to be commuting on. You know, and the bike hates itself, you hate the bike. It's a lose-lose situation, and just going to the oil made all the difference. I mean, that's the thing about this bike. This bike has had no modifications shy of the sprocket, if you want to call that a modification. I think it should have come from the factory with that sprocket. I think it's just all this EPA bullshit and all the, you know, government restrictions that is going to make these bikes turn into be these pigs from the factory with, you know, restrictions left and right. So, you know, I say that's more of a requirement than is a modification. But as far as you know, everything else goes, the bike is stock, and I tell you, I don't ride this bike and feel the need for more power. I don't find the need for really anything. You know, one of the things we just did the other day is you know, bled the brakes, and you know, these bikes, I'll be honest, they did lack you know, feel. The brake lever was very spongy and not very responsive, and it really took a lot of brake pressure to get the bike to stop, and it was frustrating. So it was nice to bleed the brakes. Just a very simple, you know, do-it-yourself at-home job to lighten up, or not lighten up, but to remove any air in the lines, and now the brakes just feel tremendously better. I mean, it's a one-finger braking deal, so it feels really good. You know, it's just fun to ride this bike. Your position is right. You know, you sit in a comfortable spot. Your rake is not aggressive. You're, you know, very easy and relaxing bike to ride. And furthermore, you know, everything is feels right. It just, you know, even though I will admit that the location of the turn signals on this bike, I find myself pushing the horn, you know, about every other time. It seems one time I get the signal, and the next time I get the horn. I don't know. Maybe that's just, it was an inside joke at Suzuki, who knows. But you know, the other than that, I mean, I you know, generally I'm pretty critical. You know, I don't like, well, this fit and finish is bad, or, you know, rattles around. You know, kind of like Kawasaki's. They just, I don't know, they tend to be rattle boxes in a lot of ways, and, you know, wiring is kind of fed everywhere, and the panels just, I don't know what it is. It just, they just seem to be noisy from non-engine parts. So I don't know, that's just a Kawasaki thing. But either way, in regards to this bike, the quality's there. I mean, as far as the mirror mounts go, solid. You know, the location of the windscreen and everything is great. You know, your filler cap is, or your reservoir for your brakes is out of the way, and you know, doesn't you know, sit kind of more center in line with the triple clamp. It's really a nice, really thought out, I'd say. Yeah, I mean, just something nice about cruising on this bike. I don't find, like I do on my leader bike, that every time I go out, I really only feel the need to, or the want to ride if I am gonna go do a canyon run or more of an open ride. It just, to me, it's just riding that bike in the city is dreadful, quite frankly. I get no enjoyment out of it. It sucks. But with this bike, riding it around is just fun. I mean, it's, you know, it's like no worries ever, which is what I love about that. It's just fun. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. What a day out. Again, second gear, 20 miles an hour, going around here, corner, 10 miles an hour, second gear, just barely touching the gas, and it's no worries. I mean, I'm not worried about what gear I'm in, you know, I'm not hunting around in gears, I'm not shifting around, you know, I mean, it's just perfect. But I guess as I'm approaching the end of this video, let me do a quick recap, since I'm sure you guys don't really care about most things I'm gonna say. But in recap, engine's great, power's great, suspension terrible off the showroom floor, phenomenal when adjusted, really works well. I don't think that anyone on the road is going to exceed the capability of the suspension by any stretch. I don't even think that most guys that upgrade their suspension, whether it's to Öhlins or to another brand of racing shock with more shims, therefore more adjustment, could even really use them. I think it's all just for show, as it is with most guys that ride, I think, that do those upgrades. Given there are guys, obviously that I know personally that have exceeded the limit of the shock and do use them. But all I'm trying to say here is that, this suspension has a lot of adjustment, and I think it can suit a wide variety of riders, whether it's simple road riders, whether it's commuters, canyon run guys, weekend warrior style. I think that this suspension really just has it all. And for the value that you get in this bike, I think these bikes are, don't quote me, but around 13 grand. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot more that you're going to be able to get for a bike in that price point. I think when I talk about the engine, I think the only thing that concerns me with this engine is, again, back to all the restrictions of emissions and whatnot. I feel the engine might run, compared to other factory bikes off the floor, it feels a little lean to me. Feels like a different tune, if that's available. I don't know, for these bikes, shy of a Power Commander or something like that. If there's actually a dyno tune map for these bikes that's available, that might be something to really consider, to just richen it up a little bit. I don't know, it would give me a little bit more confidence on the high revs. I mean, when you do rev this bike out on the very, very top end, while I wouldn't be one bit concerned about motor damage, I feel the engine is just a little lean on the top end, and I could be completely wrong. It's completely by feel and sound, but that's one of the things that I noticed. But other than that, again, seat position's great. You know, your lean angle sitting on the seat versus your visibility is phenomenal. You look straight over the windscreen. It has it really, this bike, what I love about it actually is how easy it is to transition from a cruising position to a very aggressive position. So, you know, if I just want to dive down, get under the windscreen, I can. You know, highway cruising, I can. I mean, it's just, it's so easy to transfer from one style to another on this bike, and it's effortless. And again, here, you know, third gear, 40 miles an hour. And once I get around this corner here, make sure there's no oncoming traffic. And just show you how it picks up. In fact, why don't I just give it a little bit more and just juice it for you guys real quick.